All right, Devin, that is going to take us to crowdfunding corner for board games in crowdfunding whose campaigns end in like the next 2 weeks ish. There's 6 games I wanted to highlight this week. There are so many. I had a hard time even choosing which ones to go over. There were probably 10 more I could have had on, and I was like, I feel like we can't be in this segment for an hour.
Yeah.
So I cut it to 6. I think these ones were the ones that were most intriguing to me. First up, we got Gems of Iridescia. Weird name. And a pretty simple game. Basically, you start at the bottom of this board, and you are moving up the board by moving your little meeple to a space that is north or east or west from your piece. And you'll get some of these fancy gems from those locations. And then you can press your luck a little bit and roll some dice. And if you roll values that are higher than the current value, the current value of that gem, then you were able to mine extras. And the price of those gems is shown on dice of the matching color. So the purple gem is worth whatever is shown on the purple die. And that will change. So that purple die isn't rolled. It's just a counter, basically. So the value of a gem can be 1 to 6. Pretty simple game. Other than that, you're spending those gems in order to like build relics and tools that will help you to, better excavate the land and get points. Really a pretty simple game, in my opinion. The game ends when somebody gets to the top of the map, which I think is kind of back to the hub city of the game. There's like a fancy jewel under one of the face down tiles up there called the Iridescia stone, maybe, or something. A cute aesthetic. The pieces are cool. The deluxe version has these cool wooden pieces that have like, what did they call it? Luminescent, like printing on it. It's like very shiny. Cool dice. Very light game though. So I don't know that this one is for me. I have games of this weight that I generally I think would prefer, and I don't experiment a ton with super light games just because I don't feel like I'm going to play them more than a few times. And I want a game that has enough on its bones that I'm going to play it 10, 20 times would be like a perfect world for me. But this one's been getting a bit of buzz. I think it's a cool idea, simple game. If you like kind of hex movement and set collection and pretty simple rule sets, then it might be a hit for you. That one's on Kickstarter, ends on the 10th, so in about a week. Next up is Railroad Tiles. This is a game from Horrible Guild. They're one of my favorite board game publishers. And this game is kind of a sequel to a game called Railroad Inc., but that one was a roll and write where you would roll these weird dice that had different roads and train tracks on them, and then you would draw those train tracks on your own little map in order to make like the best kind of network of roads and train tracks. This one is a tile laying game, and it has one of my favorite drafting systems in it, very similar to something like King Domino, where when it's your turn to choose which section of tiles you want, you can take the section that has 4 tiles in it, which is obviously the best one. But by doing that, you will then be last to choose in the next round. But if you take the one farthest to the left, that one will only have 2 tiles in it. But then you'll be in first place to choose next round. So by choosing something better, you'll be later in turn order next turn. Love that system. It works so good in King Domino. This game just has a bit more going on than King Domino. So I'm excited about that because I feel like I've seen everything King Domino has to offer. It's a very short, light 15-minute game. In this one, you after you draft those tiles, you'll then put them in your little map in front of you. And based on which, they have these circle tokens that will have like cars or pedestrians or trains on them. And then you can place them at designated spots on your board. So you're trying to build like connected networks like the train tracks. If you're able to have lots of train, what are they called? Train meeples on the same train track, then you'll score a lot of points by doing that. So that's kind of how the base game works. It also comes with this free, for the Kickstarter here, this won't be included in the retail version that comes out later, kind of worlds expansion that has a bunch of mini objectives you can add in, like temples and rail cars and all kinds of other things. And then it also has, I think, was it 7 different add-on expansions? So you take the base game and then you can add on like the, and I can't remember, canal expansion or the, I can't remember what all of them were, but there's a ton of them. They have a few different pledges. Like the base pledge is the game plus that free worlds expansion. Then they have the advanced one, which is the base game, the worlds expansion, plus your choice of 3 of the other expansions. Or they have the collector's one that comes in a slightly bigger box that just has everything in it, which is cool. And that one also has pieces for a 5th player, which is really cool too, to be able to play a game like this with 5 players. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a pretty simple tile laying game, but with so many expansions and quite a few different modules you can just add in, it seems like you could take this from like the most basic level and play almost with like, 10-year-olds, or you could throw in the objectives, throw in an expansion. I don't know if you can like mix and match, like we're going to play with these 3 expansions. Maybe you can, to kind of like a much bigger and more complex game. So anyways, that's Railroad Tiles. Lots of cool pieces. They're all screen printed in this version where they won't be in the retail version. They also have Railroad Ink on sale here. And yeah, these 2 designers from Horrible Guild, I think their names are Yalmar Haq and Lorenzo Silva. They're, yeah, just 2 of my, that's like one of my favorite designing teams for board games. They generally make like medium and medium light games, so they're not making like ultra heavy stuff, but games like Evergreen and The Great Split and Railroad Ink. I think what else I have from them, Dragon Castle, that's one of my favorites that almost never gets talked about by other people. They just, I really like them. So anyways, that's Railroad Tiles. Lots of options there if you like tile laying games, like Carcassonne or King Domino, like I already mentioned, that have lots of modularity and different ways to play it. That's what this one's all about. That one is also on Kickstarter and also ends on the 10th. Next up is DinoGenics. This is a reprint of a game that came out a few years ago with an expansion called New Arrivals and a big box called the Park Manager Edition. And that Park Manager Edition includes the base game, the New Arrivals expansion that's in here, and another expansion that I can't remember the name of. Controlled Chaos, I think is what it was called. This game is basically Jurassic Park, the board game. There are quite a few, well, quite a few might not, there's a train. Quite a few might not be the right word, but there are a few other games that do this Jurassic Park theme too, where you're building a dinosaur park and you're researching DNA to get new dinosaurs, and then your dinosaurs might like cause some havoc or eat a guest or something. This one is a bit simpler than some of the others. For example, I have Dinosaur World, which is the sequel to Dinosaur Island. I also have Dinosaur Island Roar and Write, so I have 2. But this one's a little bit simpler. You're trying to collect sets of different dinosaur cards in order to fully complete their DNA so that you can put them in your park. Then you have to have fences around them, and if you don't have them fenced off correctly, that's when you have to roll kind of those danger dice to see if they hurt your buildings or the visitors at your park. This one, it's kind of interesting. This one has a lot more like serious art style than Dinosaur World. Dinosaur World's art style is like more cartoony, but this game is a lot simpler than Dinosaur World. So I feel like the themes or like the artwork is a little mismatched there a little bit, but I personally like the cartoony dinosaur art style a little bit better than this one. But this one reviewed pretty well. I think people generally liked it. If you are looking for a game with the Jurassic Park feel that's a little bit simpler than some of the others in the market, has cool T-Rex and Brachiosaurus meeples, then this one might be one for you. Since I have Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roaring Right, probably not one for me right now, but wanted to give it a shout out. That one ends on the 11th and it's on Gamefound, not on Kickstarter. All right, we're halfway through, Devin. 3 more. Next up is Ice and Idols. This game is from Inside Up Games, and they do great stuff. One of their most famous games is Earth. It won like a bajillion Game of the Year awards in 2022. I think it was 2022. Maybe it was last year. I can't remember. This is a bit of a simpler game. Has really cool artwork, and you're playing as these explorers exploring this like ice cave, and you have to move through these tunnels on the ice cave. The board is very unique. It has kind of this bottom section that are kind of like the details underneath the ice, and then these, I think they're acrylic, different clear transparent pieces that go on top of that on this weird grid. And those acrylic ice pieces have gold pathways on them that like dictate the tunnels that you can move through. And then those ice pieces will sometimes move and shift around, and the entire board will rotate. So the temple's like rotating and the ice is sliding around, which is probably the most unique part of this game. Other than that, you're just moving your explorer around the castle. Castle's not the right word. The cave system, the temple, to find these artifacts. And then once you get one, you can either kind of research it, or you can nest it in your player board to use its power if you deliver it to a certain spot. So it's a pretty simple game. You're like moving along these gold pathways, picking up stuff, and then moving along the gold pathway to deliver it somewhere. And that will get you points and make you more powerful. And then there are some special abilities you can do, which will rotate the board or move some ice. And each of the 4 player characters has a special ability, like this keysmith guy. He can jump over a location, but he can only do that if you spend 4 action points. Action points are, I feel like, kind of making a comeback. That was a board game mechanism that was used a lot, and then people kind of moved away from it. They're like, action points are so outdated and dumb. But now I feel like they're coming back, and I kind of like them sometimes. World Wonders and Radlands with the water, those are technically action points, just in a water token. But yeah, I don't know. So it seems pretty fun. It's pretty light. I didn't even look at the price yet, but yeah, it looks like the base pledge is $42, and then they have another pledge here that looks like it has an expansion and like a little double, what would you call that? A stand that has 2 different levels. So like a foot off the table, there's kind of a top level. So yeah, there's a bit there. I think the idea of the shifting board is cool, but games where I'm simply like moving on a grid, like, okay, I'm going to use 4 action points to move, and I move here, 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 here. I feel like that's generally less exciting to me than other game mechanisms. But this expedition expansion thing, I should have scrolled farther. This looks a little more interesting to me, so I'll have to check that out. But that's Ice and Idols from Inside Up Games. That one's on Kickstarter and ends on the 12th. Got another train coming through. I was telling Devin earlier in the show that The trains have to honk at every intersection right now because the little blockers that we couldn't remember the names of are not working for some reason. So sorry for the train honking. Okay, this game is called Cult, and I think it's a cool trick-taking idea. So it's a trick-taking game where you play a card into each trick, but it has a unique scoring system in that you don't score points or win the game just by winning tricks. After the trick is done, then whoever won the trick gets to take a card from that trick. And then they can play it into two different areas, like a scoring tableau or to what they call a dream area, I think. And that dream area will become your future hand. I haven't played this one, and I feel like trick-taking games can either be hit or miss for me, and a lot of that comes down to trying it out. But it's basically a post-trick draft where whoever wins the trick takes a card from that trick and then decides if they want to use it as a scoring card or kind of to nest it into their hand for later. Cool idea. Very kind of indie project here where, it's very simple artwork and you can tell, I think it's their first project, but trick-taking is so big right now, and this does seem like a unique spin on it. So not much more to say about Cult other than good on them for trying something cool and unique, and I hope it does well. Scroll up to the top, Devin. I just want to see how it's doing. So they haven't quite hit their goal. They're at $4,400-ish out of a $5,400 goal that's converted from Canadian or something. But so yeah, check out Cult. I think it looks like a cool spin on trick-taking games. I like unique ones. All right, and then last up, this one was tricky for me. I think it looks cool, but it's one of those projects that's from Japan, and so it was a little tricky for me to fully nail down the rule set and everything else. And it's also this company's first created. So this one is kind of like pie in the sky for me in that it could end up being really cool, but a little tricky too. It delivers to Japanese backers in November, which is like incredibly soon. But they said it would take 1 to 3 months after that for it to ship overseas to other countries. But in this game, you are drafting dice. I really like dice drafting in a game where someone rolls a bunch of dice and then each player chooses a die and does something with it. Places it somewhere special or gets to use the number of pips on top of the die they took to do something. And this one uses that as one of the main mechanisms. And then you're upgrading your own flying boat spaceship, and you can put these Tetris shaped Tetramino pieces in the engine room to upgrade your ship, or you can focus on kind of this rondelle area and putting different tiles on top of the actions there. Kind of gave me, I can't even think of a good example, but it gave me vibes of a game that has a few different mini games inside of it, like different segments. Like, okay, here is the Tetramino mini game, and here is the mini game. That's a cool section there where you put these blue little energy cubes on this wheel, and then you get to rotate it at certain times, and it rotates all of the cubes with it. And so that's its own thing. And then the dice drafting is on its own different board. And again, I tried to read the rulebook and it was a little unclear. So this one is like I said, just kind of a pie in the sky. I hope it's really great, and I'm wishing them all the best. I really like how it looks visually, but I would have to, for me to back it, I'll probably have to do a ton more research on this one, just because it's a page that's a little tricky to even grok, which is a weird word. But anyways, that's Grow Sky which is also a weird name for a game. I think the Grow is the name of this bird that can like help you build your boat. So some weird concepts in there, but pretty looking game. I like dice drafting. I like engine building. I like Tetramino sections in games. So a lot of the checkboxes for me were like, ooh, sounds cool, sounds cool, sounds cool. Then I read the rulebook and I was like, I don't know what I'm reading, but sounds cool. Anyways, that one ends on the 13th and it is on Kickstarter. All right, Devin, a little bit shorter of a crowdfunding corner for us this week with 6 games that we went over. We got a trick-taking game, we got a dinosaur game, a game about gems, one about railroads, one with a spinny board about ice, and one with big grow birds and flying spaceships. So which game is Devin's pick of the week for the first week of October?
This was hard for me, but I think it's going to be this one right here, Colt.
Ooh, cool.
Yep. They're not backed by as many people. Seems fun enough. It's relatively inexpensive. There's a print and play for $3.
Love it. Yeah, I think this one, again, it's a little hard to know until you've kind of played a trick-taking game, in my opinion, but cool idea. Just kind of adding in a riff on a trick-taking game that I don't think has ever been done before. Which I feel like in that trick-taking genre, there's a lot of repeats. Where like, okay, well, we're doing the thing where you can't follow the suit that was played. It's like, okay, well, these 7 other games tried that. Whereas Cult, this seems very unique. So cool. I love that. My pick of the week is going to be Railroad Tiles. I really like Horrible Guild, like I mentioned. Love this design team. I think this game could probably replace like a lot of tile laying games for me. I already mentioned King Domino. And it kind of gives me that like puzzle feel of like I want to really make like the perfect little network of roads and railroads on my own little spot. I think it looks really like a well produced. I like the way that the meeples look with the screen printing on them. And I just really love that King Domino draft system of whoever takes the best stuff is later in turn order on the next turn. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about this one, Railroad Tile. So that's going to be my pick of the week for this week. And that is going to do it for Crowdfunding Corner here on October. Today's the 2nd, but this will go up on the 4th.